Wow, what a huge difference it makes in this area just by adding a few simple annuals to the block wall. Do you want to dress your garden up with a little bit extra color and make a otherwise plain block wall look a lot better and give you some vertical interest? Then this is absolutely a great idea that you might want to look into. What we've done every year is we've taken advantage of this block wall in the fact that we can add some color to it while growing things underneath, and it has been a huge success for us. And today we're really excited because we get to replant our beautiful annuals this year, and we're going to take you through that process right now. So one of the things that sometimes we get asked is, how do we have these adhered to the wall? And it's kind of a long story because the little eye hooks that are connected to the wall that hold these pots and the brackets in were already here before we moved in, and I have always wondered, what were they originally used for? But then that quickly changed into, what can I use them for in our garden? And it's really something that I think has really elevated this side of the yard to a whole new level, in that we can plant below and have our wonderful garden here and the other landscaped areas, and also have some vertical interest that is something pleasing to look at and takes the focus away from a rather plain block wall. When you have that beautiful color, it just kind of makes it all look cohesive and interesting anyways. And so once we decided we could put these in here, it really did elevate the whole look of the garden. It's really only 3 or 4 things that we needed to make this work. All you would need basically is a concrete drill bit, and then the eye hook to put in the wall, and then basically a bracket, obviously the pot that fits into the bracket for the container, and then to keep the bracket even, I have a little tiny piece of wood here that keeps this kind of level from the wall. Otherwise, it kind of like leans forward, which, you know, it wouldn't be a problem at all, but it does keep it nice and even, and it ends up making it look really, really nice and steady that way. So I have 8 of these pots, and the plants that I selected for this year I think are going to be great. We've had some really great success. I started with my first year having these on the wall with some petunias, and they were great and they grew beautifully, and there was a lot of color, but it was kind of like an uneven growth habit. Beautiful blooms, but they were kind of all over the place. And then the next year after that, I elected to plant some super bells in there, and those were the true winners. Why I really like those, besides the fact that they don't dry out, is that they eventually grow in a beautifully uniform cascading shape, and I'm hoping to achieve that same look this year. Last year I had the double blue super bells along with the dreamsicle, and they were beautiful. And after 2.5 seasons, they finally fizzled out, which gave me a free and clear canvas to start over again. And I think it's going to be great this year. So let's go ahead and start the planting right now. I'm just going to remove the rest of the pots, and then we'll get started. All right, let's talk about these beautiful annuals that we're going to pot up in these new containers along the wall. I couldn't be more excited because I think these 2 colors are going to be beautiful throughout the season, and hopefully will last a very long time. So this year, from Proven Winners Direct, as you remember from my unboxing video, this is the newly improved Super Bells Pink, and I know that it's going to be beautiful on that block wall, and I think it'll be in a great contrast with the other Super Bells that we had ordered, which is the newly improved last year Super Bells Yellow. And they had improved this variety to be more tight and compact. And I planted this at my mom's house last year in her backyard, in her containers along the block wall, along with some really cool osteospermum and some lantana. And I can absolutely verify that these are beautiful and they grow nice and compact, and they are full of bloom to the point where you don't even see any of that green foliage. So I know that these two colors, being that they are so beautiful and really, really healthy, are going to look great right next to each other. My idea is to put them in pots in alternating colors, which means pink, yellow, pink, yellow, pink, yellow, which will give that beautiful contrast along the block wall. I had originally thought that I was going to plant them in sections, which 2 pink, 2 yellow, 2 pink, 2 yellow, but I think having them right next to each other really will showcase each of their colors, and it will really pop when you're looking along the block wall from our house or from the fence when you first walk into our garden. So let's get started and let's talk about what we're going to use to give these the best setup that we possibly can. And this is what I've been doing for years, and a lot of people ask me, how do you get your Super Bells to look so beautiful and so full? And this is really the only thing that I do, other than making sure that they have constant watering and water-soluble fertilizer every 2 weeks when they're in containers. So to get them set up properly, I first use organic Biotone starter fertilizer. And if you don't have Biotone, you can also use Plant Tone. That's kind of like a catch-all slow release fertilizer. And then also I sprinkle in a little bit of the slow release Proven Winners fertilizer as well. And I know that seems a little excessive because the potting soil that I use has a little bit of nutrients in it as well, but these really are heavy feeders and they need to constantly have a source of nutrients available for them at all times in order to sustain the growth habit that they're used to doing and the constant bloom cycle that never ends all the way through the season. So if we set them up right, then we're going to have huge success all throughout. So it's not really too excessive. This and this, along with the amazing moisture control soil that I use from Miracle-Gro, really does the trick. Constant watering. I have these on drip every day. It'll water for about 5 to 10 minutes depending on our heat in the morning, and that's it. And every week I'll come by with some Proven Winners water soluble and give them a drink of that as well, and that really is it. So I know that just seemed like a lot right now, but if you start them first of all with the right beginning, then really all it is throughout the season is the water soluble once a week. And so it is a lot easier than it sounds. So let's get these things planted and I'll walk you through my process. Okay, so let's talk about the containers that I have found this year. And I was just talking about how happy I was with the quality of these containers that I found at Walmart. But prior to this, I had used these containers, which are readily available either at Lowe's or Home Depot, and they're really, really, really thin plastic. They still have a little reservoir on the bottom, but you can tell that this is a little bit bigger, especially at the base. It stays a little bit wider. It still has the reservoir. Now, once the Super Bells grow over the sides, you're not going to even see the pot, and that'll be even further insulation from the sun. But I really liked how these were a lot heavier and a lot more substantial, and they weren't really too much more than these cheap ones that I found in years prior. This was about $5 to $6. This was $7.95, I believe, on Walmart, so it was a great update. So let's go ahead and get these in right now. So I'm going to start with putting a little bit of soil. I'm going to leave the sticker on and turn that to the back. I'm not going to fuss with that at all. So let's start by putting a little bit of soil at the bottom here, and then giving a little bit of fertilizer mixed in at the bottom so that they have the nutrients that they need, like I was talking about. And just a little bit more. Just like that. Grab one of these. Kind of shake it out. Really nice root system, and it's really growing it even more than before. You can tell that it's been really happy in its pot there. Fill it in around. Making sure that we don't have any of those air pockets around the root ball. And the one thing that I had learned over time was how food hungry these plants actually were. I didn't really understand that at first until I did a little bit more research, and I found that yes, you definitely, if you want to have success with these super bells or anything like that calibrachoa wise, then you got to feed them, and especially when you have them in containers, because you know the water leaches out through the bottom, and unlike plants that are in the soil, it doesn't retain nutrients the same way. So it's really, really important to make sure that we give them a good start right off the bat. So that's basically it. And that's it. First one done. This is not going to take long at all. Now, it's really interesting to notice because in that prior video, I talked about how I like to grow them out a little bit after they're shipped to us so they can get acclimated to our environment. And you can tell that it has a lot of new root growth in here since I've been doing that. And that's really a sign that we've done the right thing, because they're really happy here and they're taking off like we want them to. So yeah, just put a little bit of soil in on all sides. And the one thing that I really notice about these new pots is that there's more room for soil around the sides, which is really, really nice to see that. Just a little bit of a sprinkle around. If I can get it all over the place and all over the top of the table here. Now I try not to make that soil go any further above where the original root ball is. Make it nice and even just like that, and then push it down to make sure that I have all of those air pockets cleared out. And just like that, another one's done. Now after I get these all planted up here, I'll make sure to give them a nice soaking of water so that they're all ready to go. And then in a couple days here, I'll come around and make sure that I have the drip irrigation running correctly and it's flowing really well to each one of these plants. All right, and now that we have this last one to plant here, I'm going to talk about some of the things that if you haven't grown calibrachoa or super bells in this case, just like with petunias, then you need to be aware of some things that are really, really important in some areas. One thing that I've found before is they have been prone sometimes to develop aphids. And if that happens, then you can just basically spray them with a little bit of Rose RX, and that takes care of the aphids like immediately. And the other thing that can develop in some areas around our nation is they can develop budworms, which are a little tiny caterpillar that will go through and eat all of the buds off of the plants. Your plant will stay healthy, but you'll have no flowers at all. And if you see that kind of thing happening, then you can spray with what they call BT, which I will link down below, or Captain Jack's, which are both an organic insecticide that will take care of those, and you will have no problems with budworms. And you can even spray them preventatively if you are prone to developing those in your area. I know that here it's kind of hit or miss. A couple years ago, we had a really bad budworm season, and if I didn't spray every week, then the flowers from petunias or from calibrachoa, I had major issues and major trouble with that. So last year, I really kept an eye on it, and I didn't have as much, but I still did have to spray every once in a while. And so I kept a really close eye on that, and that seemed to really do the trick, and I didn't have any problems throughout the season. And some of these are really delicate, so I want to make sure not to disturb that root ball at all before I add the rest of the soil. So anyways, yes, if you do have any of those things, you can do something about it. And the good news is you can do something organically that's not going to harm the environment, pets, or other things. So just kind of keep an eye on that. Now, aphids are so common in so many areas, but they're relatively easy to take care of. And I would just kind of keep an eye on the plants. And if you notice those little kind of they look like white little shavings, then that is a sign that you might have some aphids on there, because a lot of the times that's their waste product that they leave behind. And so if you start to see that, you can do something about it by spraying them also. And every time that I've had an issue, it's taken care of it beautifully. So yeah, just kind of keep an eye and watch it, because you definitely want to have those blooms, because after all, that's why we plant our plants. And we definitely don't plant our annuals so that they can be taken over by these pesky little insects that can cause harm. And I would definitely, if you were going to spray those things, I would spray at dusk, where you're not going to have any of the other beneficials in the area where the flowers are, so that you don't harm any other plants, especially with the Captain Jacks. Now the BT is more specialized just for budworms, so that's why I like to use it a lot more than the other. But if you have a difficult situation where you have multiple things happening, Captain Jacks is a great option, and it will take care of it for sure. So that's basically it. Start them off with some good starter fertilizer and some slow release fertilizer. Make sure that they stay consistently moist by watering them or setting them up on a drip irrigation system. And then once a week, then fertilizing with a water-soluble fertilizer. And that's basically all you really need to do, because other than that, these things are pretty easy to grow, and they are amazing show-stopping annuals that give you color all throughout the season. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I think this combination, even though they're small right now, are going to look amazing on our wall. So let's place them on the wall, and then I'll show you what everything looks like at the very end. Here we go. And just like that, they're all watered in and in their places along the block wall. Wow, what a huge difference it makes in this area just by adding a few simple annuals to the block wall. I mean, it really does elevate what we already have here in our garden. And I think the color combination with the Super Bells pink and the Super Bells yellow is going to be beautiful in contrast with each other, and also playing well with everything that we already have in our space. We have a lot of pinks, lavenders, and beautiful colors, as you can see back here in the back. And I think all of this playing together is going to make a beautiful show in a relatively short amount of time. It's probably going to be just a number of weeks before these really start filling in and blooming and cascading over the sides of the containers. And if we do like we're supposed to, where we keep them consistently moist and then also give them that water-soluble fertilizer every week, and even if you forget every 2 weeks at least, then they are going to spell a gigantic recipe for success. So we thank you so much for coming today, and we hope you enjoyed today's video on how we take this simple plain block wall and we elevate it with some beautiful annuals as we prepare for our growing season and prepare for a season of beautiful color. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you again very soon. And until next time, happy gardening, everybody. Take care now. Bye-bye.